Renee Powers is the Trails and Greenways Coordinator for the City of Roanoke Parks and Recreation Department. She's worked with Trails in Roanoke since 2013. She manages several staff and thousands of volunteers that do work on trails, greenways, the Roanoke River Blueway, the park cleaning. Renee has a master's degree in higher education with a concentration in outdoor recreation from the University of Maine and is an avid mountain biker, a skier, a whitewater kayaker, and a trail runner. She lives in Salem with her husband, Steve, and her dog, Eddie. Please welcome Renee.
Well, thanks for having me this morning. Can everybody hear okay? With me speaking through the speaker? Okay, great. Happy to be here. This is my first Master Gardener meeting, but I do know some faces in the room. So I might call out on some of you as I go through the presentation, but talk about volunteer opportunities and kind of what we have in blueways, parks, trails, and greenways for Roanoke Parks and Recreation. So let's dive right in. So some objectives today is to learn more about our blueways, parks, trails, and greenways in the Roanoke area, and then also to learn how to engage as volunteers in the blueways, parks, trails, and greenways that Roanoke Parks and Recreation maintains. So what is the Roanoke River Blueway? It is a 41.3 mile stretch of the South Fork of the Roanoke River at East Montgomery County near Lafayette through Hardy Ford Department of Wildlife Resource Access at Smith Mountain Lake, Virginia. So it's a really long stretch of the Roanoke River that we have designated as a blueway, which means we encourage recreation on that, have put-ins and takeouts. It's a free-flowing river except for the Niagara Dam in Roanoke County at the Blue Ridge Parkway and the Low Water Bridge at Smith Park in Roanoke City, which we are working on getting removed. It's fully funded and at 30% engineering plans for removal at this time. It connects Salem, Roanoke County, and the city of Roanoke and the town of Vinton by water. And it also has the Roanoke River Greenway along it for over 1/3 of the distance, which makes it really easy that if you did want to paddle a section and bike a shuttle or walk a shuttle, that is possible. And then it's also an urban oasis for recreation and a wildlife corridor. So we do have a printable map. These are available at the Discovery Center on Mill Mountain. They're also available on the Blueway website. It's really, really long because the river is long. It's 41.3 miles that we're trying to encourage folks. You can see, and I'll have a zoom in on the next one, that it talks a little bit about safety and stewardship, so leave no trace, some information about water. The website also points those things out. And then it has GPS coordinates for each of the put-ins and takeouts. So that way, if you're not familiar with the streets around there, you can type in the GPS coordinates and get to it. So we also have kiosks along the way. This is a zoom in of the one at Wasena Park, kind of showing a little bit upstream and downstream, as well as some river hazards. The Roanoke River Blueway is managed by committee, which is like a blessing and a curse if you've ever been on a committee. The Blueway Committee was established in 2013. We meet every other month. It's housed within the Allegheny Regional Commission, the Roanoke Allegheny Regional Commission, the Planning Commission, and includes staff from the localities, members of the community, local business owners, and civic organizations such as Roanoke Mountain Adventures and Visit Virginia's Blue Ridge. The focus is on improving the user experience, sharing upcoming events, and planning future amenities like put-ins and takeouts that are ADA accessible. And then they also host the website and create and distribute the brochures and maps to the public. But really, we're here to talk about volunteers. So how can someone be engaged in the Blueway resource as a volunteer? You can organize a group for a Blueway or Greenway cleanup. So you can reach out to me for that. And I did bring some business cards today. You can help with the construction of amenities. There's plenty of Eagle Scouts and Girl Scout Gold Award people that are looking for projects. Encourage them to reach out to us. We have kiosks that need to be built at some access points. And we would love to work with them or donate to an Eagle Scout or a Gold Award project that they're trying to raise money for making these amenity improvements. And then you can also just be a river advocate. You can paddle, encourage others to get out on the Roanoke River, and just be a good Samaritan and then pick up trash along the way and just be a friendly face. Oh. The importance of parks in Roanoke. So kind of shifting away from the river and more toward our land amenities here. They're really important for physical and mental well-being. There's hundreds of studies about how it's really important for us to have, 150 active minutes a week, or, just time outside sitting in nature, kind of the forest bathing, even just being in nature can be really helpful. We do have over 60 parks that we maintain in the city of Roanoke, including Mill Mountain and Carvin's Cove. A lot of folks don't realize Carvin's Cove is actually a city park, even though it's located in Roanoke and Botetourt counties. There are also spaces for kids to play. We have over 40 playgrounds. Kids need to get that energy out. If anybody here has kids or grandkids, I do not. I have a dog, but kids need that energy to get out. As an adult, I need to get that energy out, and parks are really important for that. It's also a really important third space for people. And a lot of recent research talks about parks being this third space. So the first space is always home, then school or work. And people just need a place to exist. Teens need to get out of the house. They're fighting with their parents, or especially for our unhoused population, they need a place to just exist during the day, and they can just go to a park if they're treating it with respect. We also have a balance of conservation and recreation, so we don't want to overdevelop each individual green space, but we want to make sure that we have forested areas like Mill Mountain and Carvin's Cove, or even some of the forests along Murray Run Greenway, so that way we have some of the benefits from that. Such as that wildlife, habitat, stormwater benefit stuff that comes from the conservation, but also the fun recreation and events such as the festivals that happen down at Elmwood, and concerts and races and different programs that we put on. So where can you find more information about parks in Roanoke? I took a little snippet here. If you go to playroanoke.com, that's probably the best spot for this information. We have a Play magazine that some of you, raise your hand if you get Play magazine in the mail. Yeah, awesome, a good number of folks. So that outlines all sorts of recent park improvements that we have, big programs that are coming up. And you can also sign up if you're not getting that on our website to receive that print copy. It's also available locations around town too. We have a blog that's on our website as well that in deep dive on kind of like what's coming up in our parks, a lot of things that are under construction, and then a monthly email newsletter that just went out this morning that highlights all of our upcoming programs. You also can stop by. We do have 2 recreation centers that have open hours. Raise your hand if you've been to the Discovery Center up on Mill Mountain. Awesome. Yeah, so the Discovery Center is open Thursday through Sunday from noon to 6 p.m. They do a lot of environmental education programming there. They also have interactive exhibits. There's a wildflower garden for all of you master gardeners that the Mill Mountain Garden Club has been taking care of, I think, since the 1950s. They're our oldest partner organization in the valley. And then the Historic Fishburne Mansion, if you've ever been to the Historic Fishburne Mansion, they have tons of great programs there. They're open Monday through Friday from 10 to 4, or Monday through Thursday from 10 to 4, and Friday from 10 to 2. And they do a ton of programming. They always decorate the mansion for the holidays, and you can go and do tours. They host weddings, but they have some great interactive programming, everything from country language to bridge and canasta and all sorts of stuff. So volunteering in parks, we are always in need of trash cleanups, whether you're just an individual that wants to help or as a group getting together. Invasive species removal, this is where I get to give Kathy some kudos. She and her husband Ron have really led this charge on Murray Run Greenway, doing a fantastic job removing some invasive honeysuckle. It's an English ivy that's been over there for way too long. Yeah.
Are you allowed to use chemicals?
Volunteers aren't allowed to use chemicals, but we come back and treat as staff. Yes. Yeah, you have to be a registered technician with Virginia Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, or a commercial use applicator. So I'm a registered technician, commercial use applicators, but we don't just let citizens. Right? That'd be bad. Don't do that. Especially in public land. It's very regulated. There's a lot of reporting with that. So yeah, we do full manual. I mean, Ron and Kathy are digging them out by the roots, which is fantastic. Getting in there really deep. We do work with Lindsay Campbell, I think her name is, with she's not with Department of Environmental Quality anymore. She's with DCR now. Yeah. Yep. So she's an invasive species specialist with the state, and there are some opportunities to volunteer with her. She's been working at Fishburne Park on the opposite end of Murray Run Greenway from where Kathy and Ron have been working, and she's a commercial use applicator, so she does do some treatment as a staff person. And we just have her information on file. So they're not like fully removing all of the English ivy vines. They'll like cut them and then she'll treat the stump. And when I say that we do treatment, we don't do treatment in a way that like you'd see an agricultural situation do treatment. I mean, you guys are master gardeners, right? Like I'm talking to the choir here, but you know, those big boom trucks with like spray everywhere. I'm out there with like a bingo dauber, like hitting stumps. You know, we're like really targeted spraying. Mostly try to not encourage the regrowth because if what we found is if you don't either dig it out by the roots like Kathy and Ron are doing, or do that really targeted spot treatment, the regrowth sometimes stuff just comes back like with a vengeance. Like you cut, I will grow twice as thick. So you know, and even so, we don't do it when the group is with us. We'll come back, recut and treat. Especially if we're working with kids. Sometimes if we're with adults, we'll kind of talk to them and be like, hey, do you mind if once you guys leave this area, we do some treatment? And most folks are pretty understandable when they see that we're like little sponge bingo daubers, basically. But yeah, it's pretty focused and intentional. Not what people think. It's not like AEP coming out with the helicopters dropping around up. So yeah, so in terms of the volunteering in the parks, we also work with a ton of school and church, college groups, businesses, doing anything from playground mulching and fence staining, big trash cleanup stuff. We've got the entirety of community school coming to Highland Park, and we're gonna do a whole refresh on like mulching the disc golf areas and the playground. So yeah, any number of pieces that we're all fitting together in the puzzle to keep things moving. Trails and greenways, this is my bread and butter. Like Jessica said, I've been working on trails since 2013 from the city of Roanoke in some iteration. Right now we have over 106 miles of paved natural surface trails, including Roanoke River Greenway, Tinker Creek Greenway, Garden City Greenway, Mill Mountain Greenway, Lick Run Greenway, Murray Run Greenway, Reed Mountain Greenway, and also trails at Carvin's Cove, Mill Mountain, Fishburne Park, Morningside Park, Fallon Park Cyclocross Course, and then more. So we have all little connectors that come through neighborhoods and all sorts of stuff. So trails and greenways are each maintained by the staff of each locality. So if you are in the city of Salem, that section of Roanoke River Greenway or Mason Creek Greenway or Hanging Rock Greenway is maintained by the city of Salem. I only maintain things that are in the city of Roanoke. We have myself, who's the coordinator, 4 full-time staff and 2 seasonal staff, but we rely heavily on volunteers. We have over 1,000 volunteers that help in some capacity in parks, trails, or greenways over the course of the year. There is a regional Roanoke Valley Greenways coordinator. That position is currently vacant. They are responsible for the planning and vision of the whole system, for representing the whole system. Like if we need to send someone to the state level to represent. They also maintain the website that I'll show you kind of a snippet of on the next page. There is a Greenway Commission as well, kind of like a committee, but more formally adopted by the governing bodies. And there's an MOU between all of the 5 localities and the Greenway Commission. They are composed of both citizens and staff from the localities, and they provide oversight, including standards, like what should the width be on the greenway, and what should the mile markers look like, and how should the website be done. Planning, so current and future kind of expansion of the system, and then also fundraising. Pathfinders for Greenways is the 501c3 associated with the Greenways, and they are the organization that can collect donations and then donate toward projects. So a recent project that we worked on with Pathfinders was the parking lot at Bridge Street West on Roanoke River Greenway over by the old Walker Foundry. If you've been to that trailhead, the new one there, that was paid for entirely by Pathfinders for Greenways donations. So that's donated money, hard at work. We did not have enough money from the grants that we received to build that trailhead, and we felt like it was important with the expansion of the Greenway to have something there. And Pathfinder stepped up and donated $180,000 for that project.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
Greenways are also not cheap. They're getting built right now to the tune of about $5 to $7 million a mile. So
Can you talk more about funding?
yes. Yeah, so funding, most greenways are funded to be created by grants through VDOT. So the same funding sources that would expand Interstate 81 would, reconfigure lanes on Orange Avenue. We apply for those same funding sources to build greenways. There's some city money that goes into that, but the bulk of it is really something called the Surface Transportation Block Grant, the Transportation Alternatives Grant, and then Smart Scale. Those are the kind of pots of VDOT money that exist for funding that. The operation and maintenance is all city funds, so it's your taxpayer dollars hard at work. So, for folks that want to see more greenways or want to see the ones that we have or trails better maintained, it's okay for taxes to be raised. It goes towards good things like that. I can't get more staff or more funding without taxes being increased or something getting taken away from someone else, which isn't good either.
So is all the funding for the greenways state focused within the state?
No, we do have some federal funding on some of the Greenway projects. That's a little more scarce these days. But all of the maintenance funds are local funds. That is all tax dollars going into my salary and my time doing any number of coordination and writing of grants, and then my staff physically out there mowing, putting in benches, trimming back the trees, etc. So greenways.org, that's all the information about the greenways, all the trails, all the mapping. So this is kind of a snippet there. If you go to greenways.org, it has as its homepage kind of this interactive map. So all of the green lines on the map are existing, completed natural surface or paved trails or greenways. You can click on it and it'll pull up kind of a box that gives you more information about that. They also have news and events on there, a whole trails directory. So if you wanted to just see trails about Carbons Cove, it's on there. If you wanted to just see paved greenways in the town of Vinton, you can search that. And then they also have a donate button as well. Biggest question I get lately. Why don't you have a paper map of the greenways? So this is our map that's going to be in a lot of the kiosks. We just got these in. We need to put them in Roanoke River Greenway kiosks. The kiosk is like 60 some inches wide by like 48 inches high. And even that, like I would need reading glasses to see some of the road names on that. So it's really not feasible with how big the system is. Like I wish I brought a Blueway map, because you roll it out and it's like the length of this table to see the Blueway. The Greenway map would have to be that same kind of length and width, which just isn't printable, right? Like we would have to custom order these maps to make it happen. And it's just not feasible. So that's why we direct folks to that greenways.org webpage. Most people are looking to walk or ride a certain smaller distance, and we can kind of talk them through. And I field calls every day where I'm happy to, provide information about, what might be the good experience based off of what you're looking for, whether you're looking to walk a lower traffic section or bike as long as you can, and how to connect things. But yeah, printing them off on like even an 11 by 17, it would be so tiny, you just really wouldn't be able to see it. We do have maps for Carbons Cove and Mill Mountain. These systems are much smaller in scale, so when you go back and look at like the Greenway map, the whole map would need to be this whole thing. But if you just take these snippets, we can kind of make those very feasible and printable. So these are printable. If you go to playroanoke.com and you want a trail map for Carbons Cove and Mill Mountain, you can print those. They'll print on 8.5 by 11 and be kind of tiny. If you have the ability to print on 11 by 17, they're actually like pretty readable and fairly detailed. I will say we're in the process of updating the Mill Mountain Park Trail map. We've built several trails and several more are under construction. So the current one that's up there is like not super current. We did it in April of 2017. The Carbons Cove one is current, but the ones in the kiosk are not. So we just redid the Cove map, put the new one on the website with some updated trails, but we're not reprinting for the kiosks at this time. Volunteer opportunities again. So for trail work, we work with the organization, the 501c3 with the Greenway Commission called Pathfinders for Greenways. They have 2 different crews that work regularly on Wednesdays. Liz Belcher, our former regional Greenway coordinator, she leads the midweek crew. They work all over the valley. They're currently on a project called Laurel Canyon up on top of Brushy Mountain at Carbons Cove, a beautiful trail that's gonna be multi-use that they're hand building. And then on Thursdays and on some of the weekends, the rock and roll crew with Brian Badger works out at the Cove. Kathy's worked with Brian for years. Yeah, fantastic machine built trail that's also going to be multi-use. With Roanoke Parks and Recreation, I host work days. Sometimes my staff leads those. We do once a month on Tuesdays from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Our next one is September 9th. We'll be out at Carbons Cove. The Blue Ridge Off-Road Cyclists, which is a local bike club, they do once a month on Sundays. And if you want more information about where they're working, you can go to blueridgeoffroadcyclists.org. And then in terms of the greenways, we do have a Greenway ambassador program. Those are folks that walk along the greenway, pick up trash or bike, and they really are just a friendly face. They're folks that you might encounter, and if you have questions about directions or where to go or just the greenway system in general, and they're out there and they wear yellow vests and they have little name tags, and sometimes they're first on the scene of an accident or some sort of situation. So they're just kind of there to be a smiling, positive face and just kind of give folks information on that. And then we also do cleanups with groups too. So tons and tons of groups want to clean up sections of Greenway. And we work with them to make it all happen. So join us. All sorts of fun pictures here. This was on the top left. Rehabilitation of the Enchanted Forest Trail. Let's put in a feature on the Enchanted Forest Trail. We do leaf blow some stuff in the fall. The bottom left is the cyclocross course over at Fallon. We just had a work day over there last week getting ready for some races. That's the gravel sand pit that we're pulling organic material out of. And then in the middle, Liz and I, a couple weeks ago, were laying out a section of Laurel Canyon that's at Carbons Cove. So, what questions do you have?
I was thinking about, what if there was an emergency on the Greenway? Is there some sort of stipulation when they're built that emergency vehicles can get to the entire Greenway?
They can, yeah. So I work really closely with our emergency manager, Trevor Shannon. We're redoing the mile markers on a bunch of them. Garden City Greenway has the new mile markers, but we have ingress egress points that have ballers or locked gates that all the fire and EMS folks have access to. And when you call 911, especially if it's from a cell phone, they are able to pinpoint exactly where you are and triangulate that location and figure out the best way to get into someone. So yeah, it's kind of a complicated system, but it works pretty well. Yeah.
Yeah, so, I heard that when they put the, circle in Watertown, around Trotterville, they were going to continue the Greenway system up in Watertown. How's that going?
I don't know. I would reach out to someone in Botetourt County. Again, I'm not the regional kind of vision person. I just oversee the city of Roanoke. I know at one point they did have funding for Tinker Creek Greenway in Botetourt, but I haven't heard much. I haven't heard much about it, but it would be Tinker Creek Greenway. Yep. And we do have the whole plan is online. So if you go to greenways.org, you can find the plan, or if you just Google Roanoke Valley Greenway Plan, the most recent one is 2018 that they did it. So you can see all of the future proposed sections on that. So Sharon.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good, how are you? It's good to see you too.
So I have a question about the Mill Mountain.
Yes.
System. I know there's been a lot of work on it, some new trails.
Yeah.
Improvements. And when I went to, I don't know whether it was the greenways.org or whatever organization was sort of partnering to do that. They trumpeted the multi-use nature of the trails.
So you did.
And of course, I understand that, you know, there needs to be trails that meet people's preferences and needs, but I wrote them twice to ask if any of the trails were going to remain pedestrian only, because those of us who are walkers don't always want to share a trail with bicycles.
Yeah.
So, and I never heard back from them. So I was about to escalate to somebody else. So I'm gonna escalate to you.
Yes. So it is the Roanoke Parks Foundation that was the spearhead for that.
Okay.
I know they are not building anything pedestrian only. They were supposed to have 2 multi-use corridors, and then on that lower knob area up behind the water tower is going to be bike only. I am disappointed that they didn't get back to you, but that is not surprising. Um, and if you want to take your complaint higher, I'm happy to talk with you afterwards. Yes,
So, all right, thank you.
you're welcome.
I have another question.
Yeah.
People that live at Smith Mountain Lake that are near the river, like closer to the Roanoke side of the river, apparently there's a weekend or something where they let the river flow and all garbage from Roanoke section of the river comes down and the bottom and the Smith Mountain Lake people have to put it, like, a lot of them put a little up along the edge of it so that trash continues on down. So here, it's a river, it's mostly water bottles, why are people so bottle?
It's not hard to like buy a reusable one.
Yeah, and that sinks at least. But I mean, when you're in the river and you're doing your kayaking or whatever, dirty is Roanoke River.
So Stormwater Division of the City of Roanoke actually does a really good job of water monitoring, and they have a whole citizen science program that goes out and takes water sampling. So I don't think there's actually a release necessarily that like releases all that. I think high water events result in what happens is the dam at Niagara has a trash boom associated with it, and if the AEP folks don't clear that trash boom prior to a high water event, I think that's what's going on when you're talking about that happening.
He doesn't really care about citizens and tourism and stuff like that. He's care about their stuff. I'll say it.
But overall, so I paddle the Roanoke River quite a bit. I live in Salem with my husband. We live along the Greenway and right next to the river over near Cardinal Justice Academy. And I go down and I roll my kayak over and I get all the water up my nose. And I'm not really getting sick from the Roanoke River. If you look at that stormwater citizen science water monitoring page that they have, it shows the Roanoke River as a very healthy watershed. It's coming up green, which is good on any number of metrics of sedimentation, bacterial stuff, and they have several monitoring stations along the way. So one of them is at Peters Creek. If you're along the Greenway or you're paddling down the river, there's a long cable that comes off the bridge to a water monitoring station that's submerged most of the year and provides information on flow, sedimentation, temperature, any number of things. And those can be viewed on the USGS website if you are interested in like monitoring all of that. It's like raw data. Some of the feeder creeks are not as clean, mostly because they're draining small areas of intense development. So when you think of something like Peters Creek, right, it just flooded in the flash flood that we had, what, a week and a half ago. The amount of debris that we got from that creek was kind of substantial. But when you look at, and Stormwater's website does a really good job of this, showing, okay, if there's this creek, what is the actual drainage area of that creek? It's like all built out. It's, you know, shopping centers and residential homes. It's Peters Creek Road, which is a 4-lane highway basically. And, you know, that's a tough watershed for a river to manage. River water gets cleaner through kind of aeration and white water. So it just doesn't have that very much. Peters Creek has very little flow and there's just a lot of like trash and just like think about someone's car idling at a stoplight. You know, there's going to be a little bit of drip of oil or antifreeze or fuel or something like that. And that all kind of gets washed in. And dilution is the solution to pollution. If you've ever heard of that in like high school science class. So, you know, if you have a little bit of pollution in like a big river, like the Roanoke River, which isn't that big of a river, but it kind of absorbs it, and you know aeration can kind of help with that, and there's some plant matter and things like that that can filter all that out. In Peters Creek drainage, the tiny little drainage that barely has any flow, and then all of a sudden you put like a ton of rain in it, and it's going to have a bunch of sediment that's been in people's backyards, or you know all that stuff that just sits on the side of the road, you know, sediment and trash and stuff all at once, so it becomes very polluted. Yeah, so that's part of the challenge is when you have a lot of development next to a stream that doesn't have much flow, you don't have that dilution. So that's why they come up kind of rough in their metrics.
Does it dry up? Peters Creek?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, almost every tributary along the Roanoke River dries up in the city. Lake Run will have a base flow of like 5 or 10 cubic feet per second, which is a trickle. Same thing with Mason Creek. Mason Creek is a paddleable stream. I paddle a section from Carbons Cove Road to the Roanoke County Parks Building there on Kessler Mill Road. And it'll get up to 6 or 7 feet sometimes in the spring. And if you go out there right now, it's like a trickle coming through there. So water levels in an area like this that doesn't have a lot of dams fluctuate greatly based on rainfall. So we're in a dry season now. Fall's always our dry season. Spring's always our wet season, so is winter. So you'll get these varying flows of things. But yeah. Hydrology 101. Yeah.
How many ambassadors do you have?
So Greenway ambassadors, active each month, usually between 10 and 15. There's like 30 on the roster. Some folks kind of come in and out of it, like any volunteer organization. I'm sure some of you guys are like, I'm in it. This is what I do. I live and breathe Master Gardener. And some people are like, yeah, I'm not going to go out in July when it's hot or January when it's cold, So yeah, that's every volunteer group, right? So, I've got someone who like die hard every month is putting in like 40 hours. Another person who die hard every month is like 20 or 25 hours. And then some folks that'll be like 0.00003. And I let them stay on. I mean, if it brings them joy, even just volunteer 1 or 2 months for a day or two, that's great.
I have one more question if no one else is.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know if you're familiar with Countryside Park, they have a lot of cone flowers.
Mhm.
Who schedules the clipping of that? Cause they are cutting them too soon and the birds cannot benefit from the seeds.
Ooh, you should talk to Michael Huseman.
Okay.
He is our new landscape management coordinator with the city of Roanoke.
You know him very well.
I imagine you do. When I looked back on the invite that I had from you in January, we scheduled this. I was like, oh, I had correspondence with Michael before he worked for our department. So he is our new landscape management coordinator. So you guys know him well. So he handles all of our landscapes and parks, floral plantings, perennials, etc., as well as all of our park mowing that doesn't happen on greenways or athletic fields. So yeah.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Yes, you know where he went. He started with us July 22nd, so he's only been in his current role about 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So yeah. And he's also responsible for like the wildflower meadow at like Big Thomas and any kind of like wildflower planting stuff that we have. Yeah. Which he's made it very clear that's not his passion. His passion apparently is small ornamentals. He has like a pygmy ornamental garden at his house that he's like very passionate about.
Why haven't we gone to his house?
Yeah. I didn't know.
We'll plan that.
So, the new school site,
Yeah, I'm sure.
about, and water that's gonna be used that needs to be generated, I think that's coming from Carbon Cove. Is that, because that's part of the Western Water Authority, so
I
I.
have no idea. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's.
Yeah, so I don't have anything to do with the actual land or the water at Carbons Cove. That's the Western Virginia Water Authority.
Right.
Yeah, so if you have questions about that,
I
anything,
didn't know if there was even connection, yeah.
no, sorry.
Wow.
Just manage the land.
I have one more comment.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for using the microphone.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah, happy to.
Any more questions? All right, well, thank you so much, Renee.
You're welcome.